Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, is now saying that Michigan has suffered enough and no new penalties need to be brought down on the program. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show, and we have some breaking news for you. This is from ESPN, and it was released just a couple hours ago. Petitti letter calls for no new penalties in Michigan sign-stealing scandal. And I found this fascinating because basically what we have here is Tony Petitti, who once was very much at the forefront of saying Michigan needed to be penalized for their infractions. And from what I'm reading in this article now, I'm actually changing my mind on Tony Petitti. I think he actually was doing the right thing. But here we go. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, give him credit for this. He will advocate for what he believes is best for one of the league's teams. That's true even if that same program previously unleashed an avalanche of headline-grabbing public accusations and animosity on him. Yeah, that happened, and I admit I was one of them. I was upset with Tony Petitti. I thought he needed to defend Michigan to the death, and the fact that he was railing against Michigan, maybe I'm using some adjectives that are a little heavy-handed, but he was coming at Michigan hard and sort of talking all of the other teams into, bringing it down on Michigan. But in this case, he has now seen, and from what I understand, his belief was that Michigan needed to be penalized, and they were penalized when Harbaugh was suspended for the last 3 games of the season. And what we have in this article is that he was penalized for those last 3 games, and Michigan still made it to the playoffs, and then Michigan won the national championship. Apparently, in Tony Petitti's mind, that was enough. That you penalized the program, you let them know they were under observation, let them know that they needed to get things under control, or they were going to suffer more consequences. Because Harbaugh was suspended, and because Michigan made it to the national championship anyway and won the national championship, Tony Petitti apparently felt like that was enough. He was standing by to see if any new information would come out, and I guess a year later, no new information has come out. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me get back to this article. In this case, Michigan football, which at the height of the 2023 advanced scouting sign-stealing scandal, hit Petitti with a blistering legal filing, claims of personal bias, and a chorus of boos and negative social media posts from fans. That happened. Yes, definitely that happened. And again, I agree. I was one of those fans. But also because we weren't being told everything that was going on. And frankly, they still can't tell us because it's an ongoing case. But that finally happened. The personal bias and attacks happened because we didn't know what was going on. And I'm not saying that was right. Personal attacks shouldn't have happened anyway. And if I did that, I apologize. I don't think I did any personal attacks, but, I was upset with them. So, but here, to Petitti's credit, he has apparently put that behind him. And he says, regardless, Petitti has sent a letter to the NCAA Committee on Infractions, arguing that Michigan deserved no further punishment in a case focusing on the actions of former staffer Connor Stalions. The letter was read at an early June infractions committee hearing in Indianapolis. Okay, so we know about that. The situation here is, so the NCAA charged Michigan with 11 rules violations, 6 of them a level 1, which is classified as the most serious. The committee has yet to hand down a ruling. That's going to come essentially at the beginning of this season, in which, all of the rival fans are hoping for the hammer. Nobody else seems to think it's going to happen. But regardless of what Tony Petitti says, here's a key part of the article. It does not have to follow or even consider Petitti's opinion. We said the same thing about Sharon Moore's 2-game suspension, that we were thinking that, as the NCAA, or we were thinking that Michigan was doing that to show the NCAA, hey, we've taken care of this, don't worry about it. The NCAA doesn't have to abide by that. The NCAA doesn't even have to read Petitti's letter, much less abide by it. And at one point I was thinking too, if this letter came out, does that mean that the NCAA contacted the Big Ten and said, hey, here's the punishments coming down on Michigan? My initial thought is no, that probably didn't happen because somebody would have leaked it and we would have heard about that, and then Petitti's letter would have come out. So the fact that Petitti's letter has come out without any leak from the NCAA kind of shows me that Petitti is not reacting, but acting here. The Big Ten confirmed to ESPN that Petitti sent the letter and said he would have attended in person. Okay, this is going back to the original meeting back in 2023, 2024. I forget when that meeting was. But at any rate, this is the heart of the letter. This is Petitti talking about the punishment. Petitti argued, sources said, that the Big Ten itself had already sufficiently punished the Michigan program when it suspended then coach Jim Harbaugh for the final 3 games of the 23 regular season at Penn State, Maryland, and at home against Ohio State. And Michigan won all 3 of those games. Even without Harbaugh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of the article. Even without Harbaugh, Michigan won all 3 en route to capturing the national championship. Now, he says the NCAA might still hit Wolverines with penalties ranging from vacating past victories, a postseason ban, the suspension of coaches, a monetary fine, or other measures. Now, obviously this is all up in the air, but man, we're hearing from a lot of experts that the whole vacating past victories and postseason ban seems unlikely because we're not talking about ineligible players. So whatever happened on the sidelines, it didn't involve the players, and the players still deserve to keep those wins. Michigan, as ESPN previously reported, has proposed suspending Coach Sharon Moore, which we've talked about, for games 3 and 4. And some people have tried to minimize Nebraska in that situation, which I think is a bad move. I would not minimize Nebraska. The NCAA could also punish individuals, including Harbaugh, now the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Stallions, and others. Petitti's letter does not address that, according to sources, which in my sarcastic nature found kind of humorous. Like Petitti is saying, hey, don't punish the program anymore. If you want to hit Harbaugh, go ahead, but not the program. I think there's still some friction there between Petitti and Harbaugh. Now, the concept of a league commissioner standing up for his conference's team is not unusual. The business of any conference is aided by its programs avoiding NCAA sanctions that might affect its ability to field competitive teams. Now, I do have the thought, too, that Petitti has a vested interest in Michigan not being punished, especially given not a postseason ban, because you want to get your teams into the playoffs and into the championship. Then more money is made, more recognition is had. But by the same token, Petitti might not be, relying on a vested interest here, because you've still got Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and from what I understand, Indiana and Illinois might still be headed for the playoffs this year, or at least, have a good chance at getting there. Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State, obviously, for sure, they're going to be in the playoffs. Indiana, Illinois, maybe. And that's a lot of teams in the playoffs. That's a lot of recognition for the Big Ten. Petitti doesn't necessarily need Michigan to be in the playoffs. In fact, even when Michigan's not in the playoffs, the Big Ten still gets recognition via Michigan. Petitti's position is notable in this situation because of the extremely contentious relationship between him and Michigan. Yeah, we know about that. Petitti, in November 10th, 2023 letter to Michigan Athletics Director Ward Manuel, laid out the Harbaugh suspension by arguing the integrity of competition is the backbone of any sports conference or league. Taking immediate action is appropriate and necessary. Now, this was, okay, so it was that statement that caused a lot of us to get upset with Petitti. I'm just checking my time here. I want to make sure I have no idea how much time I've actually put into this video. Am I even recording? Is probably there it is, 9 minutes. I'm at 9 minutes. Now I got to jump back into it. Okay, so this statement from Petitti is initially what caused a lot of us to get upset, because he's talking without having all of the facts. He's immediately saying, "Oh, the integrity of competition," but now, taking immediate action is appropriate. And now I kind of see Tony Petitti's point. And yes, I recognize that I'm doing like an about face on this, but if Tony Petitti was saying that, just because the allegations were out, that was enough. I mean, theoretically, people aren't going to make allegations that intense without knowing something. Whether that amounts to, the level that the rivals think it did, I don't think so. And I think this is evidence of that. I think this is evidence of two things then, that it was serious enough at Michigan that they needed to be reined in, but it wasn't as serious as the rival fans think. So Tony Petitti came in as the Big Ten commissioner and said, kind of like a parent, I don't care who started it, you're both grounded or you're both in detention. And that's kind of what he did to Michigan. He's like, these things are coming out, they're not stopping. I don't know what happened and I don't care what happened. Get your program under control. And to do that, you have to make it hurt. You can't, put Harbaugh in detention, so you suspend him. And that hits the program to a point to say, get your program under control. Whatever level of control is not there that needs to be there. It doesn't necessarily imply that something nefarious happened. It just implies that, I'm trying to relate this to like a high school thing, but it's like, you get in a fight and you're defending yourself, but then you go after the guy because he hit you, and then you're both in detention. And it's kind of what this seems like. And now Tony Petitti Tony Petitti did that because, he's the principal. He's got to keep everybody in line. He's not going to take the time to figure out what's going on. He's just going to say, look, you both got caught. Now fix it. So, but again, to put it lightly, Michigan disagreed. Yeah, he's absolutely right about that. Michigan fought back because just as you would, defend yourself if you got in a fight, Michigan is defending themselves and saying, we didn't start it, basically. I'm using high school language in that case. So the school vehemently fought back, arguing the due process had not been followed. Yeah, that's true, but this isn't a legal situation, although I guess it could be with the amount of money involved and with the school being involved. The university sought the temporary restraining order. In a fiery court ruling, the school claimed the Big Ten actions were fraudulent, unlawful, unethical, and per se wrongful. We're doing this with malice. That's how we all felt about it. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe Tony Petitti was just being, the rigid disciplinarian and trying to get things under control before they got out of control. The school did back down. Yes, the suspension became a rallying cry for Michigan. You could even say, just like Ohio State fans like to say, losing to Michigan was what got them through the national championship. This whole attack on Michigan is what got them through the national championship. So it's interesting how those things work out. And of course, this was funny too, that a week later at the Big Ten title game, Michigan fans lustily booed Petitti. I don't know what that means. Because that's a strange phrase to use in this case. But yeah, I do remember Petitti getting booed and the trophy getting handed over to Zach Zinter, who actually, in another way though, that was actually kind of cool because Zach Zinter was injured. Acting like it's an actual war on the field. Zach Zinter was injured, and it was kind of cool that he was back there to be able to receive the trophy. And this is where it kind of comes together. All that appears to be behind the commissioner to Petitti, making Michigan overcome a 3-game stretch without its head coach was apparently enough of a penalty. He noted in his initial 2023 decision that the suspension was not about Harbaugh, but was a way to hit the program. Like I was saying, it's a disciplinary action by the principal. Got to keep everybody in line, even if there's a hint that something might be out of line. Now, what I'm finding fascinating here, that I'm going to skip over. So he imposed the disciplinary action. It's this line right here. He also allowed that additional disciplinary actions may be necessary or appropriate if the NCAA or the Big Ten receives additional information concerning the scope and knowledge of or participation in the impermissible scheme. So Tony Petitti believed that suspending Harbaugh for those 3 games was enough unless more information came out. And now a year and a half later, Tony Petitti has released this letter saying it's been enough, which means there hasn't been any new information, which means all of that information that they had previously was not enough to suggest a postseason ban, wins being vacated, or more coaches being suspended. Which means in that case, a lot of us Michigan fans were right. It isn't as bad as what rival fans are saying it is. This isn't the desecration of the sport. If a 3-game suspension is enough to satisfy what Tony Petitti has seen, then we're not talking about a desecration of the sport of college football. We're talking about a minor incident. Don't argue with me, argue with Petitti. He's your commissioner too, not just mine. That Petitti is now suggesting that Michigan has paid its penance suggests no new information has emerged. Apparently, bygones are now bygones, even Big Ten ones. That's Dan Wenzel's language. And Dan Wenzel, again, was the guy that we were all upset with, calling him a hack when the information first came out. So it's a lesson to me to calm down and not attack without fully understanding what the person is saying. To not jump on that bandwagon, which I feel like I'm pretty good about, but not perfect. And that is going to do it. That's the update. So what do you think? Should Michigan be punished more, or do you agree with Tony Petitti? Is it all over? Let us know in the comments. If you like what you see, please give us a like, and if we've earned it, give us your subscription. It's free, it's fun, and we love talking football. And I think that's going to do it for today. I always have a hard time closing these things out. I should probably just end it. Thank you very much who has subscribed. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far and disagree with me, thank you for sticking it out and hearing me out. If you made it this far and did agree with me, let me know in the comments. Let me know, again, what do you think of Tony Petitti? All right, I'm out. Have a great day.